What if Trump's tariffs are all a smokescreen to checkmate China, secure U.S. economic dominance for the next 100 years? Might sound like a wild conspiracy theory. Lark, take your tinfoil hat off. But evidence suggests Trump's playing an interesting game of deception here. And I'm probably tired of hearing about the Trump's 4D chess moves, man. But stick around if you're a Bitcoin holder or planning to buy some, because this one affects you directly. See, China is the second biggest economy in the world. They're kind of a big deal. You've probably heard of them before. That in itself is an amazing feat. However, what's more mind-boggling is the speed at which it attained its almost $20 trillion GDP economy. It has increased its GDP by 74% in the last decade. In comparison, the US has increased its GDP by just 28% in the same time frame. It's safe to say China, kind of a big deal. And it's the United States' closest rival in terms of global influence. Of course, Trump, with his Make America Great Again mantra, won't allow the United States to be dethroned from the top so easily, and is making sure that China does not catch up. Now, to understand China's current predicament, let's take a quick trip back in time. We're going back to the future, Marty. Most of us know the US dollar was once tied to the gold standard until the Bretton Woods system collapsed in 1971. It's a very interesting story in case you haven't heard about it before. But did you know there was also a silver standard that shaped global economies before that? Now, we're going to get into this in very deep detail, but real quick before we do, guys, you're trading these crypto markets, you're trading Bitcoin, you're trading Ethereum, you're trading Solana, you're trading your dog coins, okay? You want to long the rips, you want to short the dips, make money no matter what the market's doing. Well, you need a good exchange to do that at. Check out Femex, OG cryptocurrency exchange. They've been around for years. I've been using them for years. If you want to get started, and guess what? Anyone, anywhere can use Femex. Doesn't matter where you live, okay? No KYC, available to everyone, everywhere. You'll also get a free $100 trade by using that link down below to sign up and start your account. Just deposit $10, make your first trade worth $1 or more, and you get a free $100 trade airdropped to you. Pretty damn cool. Go check it out. Link down below. Okay, so let's put on our nerd glasses here for a minute, okay? Late 19th century, early 20th century, when nations like Britain and Germany embraced gold, starting with Britain in 1821, Germany in 1873, China stubbornly clung to silver. Now, initially, this insulated China from the early waves of the Great Depression in 1929 as gold-based economies faltered. But that advantage didn't last very long. The U.S. Silver Purchase Act of 1934, aimed at boosting its own silver reserves, sent global silver prices soaring. This triggered a massive outflow of silver from China as they looked to cash in, which of course caused deflation, a shrinking money supply, and economic chaos. Trade stalled. By 1935, China really had no choice but to basically abandon the silver standard, adopting a fiat currency instead to survive. This historical misstep left China isolated. This is a pattern that might be repeating today, as China was hoarding massive amounts of gold while the world eyes a new financial frontier. We'll circle back to that in a few minutes, but China and really the entire BRICS group have been mass stacking gold in the face of global uncertainty. So back here in the present time, it seems like China is still harboring maybe a little bit of resentment from being late to the gold party. The whole world has moved on from the gold standard, but China is currently one of the biggest gold buyers, along with some of the other BRICS partners like Russia. China has bought 44.17 tons of gold in 2024, currently the sixth largest gold reserve with an estimated official holding of 2,279 tons. That's a lot of gold, by the way. However, there are speculations that China's real reserve is much bigger than this, that they've been secretly buying gold from the Russians and stuff like that. You see, despite being the largest producer of gold, it has restricted its exports since 2009. So in theory, all that gold is in China. They're just not reporting on it. Since ancient times, gold has been seen as a store of value regardless of who is in power. Now, it's clear that China is hoarding gold to reduce its dependency on U.S. dollars. We've all seen how the U.S. dollar has been weaponized increasingly over the last few years. It was used as a weapon against Russia in response to the war in Ukraine. And regardless of what your opinion is on that war, the fact is that was a shot heard around the financial world because Russia's reserves were confiscated through the banking system. Had they simply had all their money sitting in gold in vaults in Moscow, it wouldn't have happened. Had they had their money in Bitcoin, it wouldn't have happened. Okay? Now, if China is going to dethrone the US dollar, then clearly being dependent on the dollar is a liability. Now, why do you think that China became a founding member of the BRICS group? They were planning this from the start, but of course Trump, who is no stranger to the art of the deal, baby, and high-stakes business transactions knows what is happening. See, across his 2 terms, Trump's grievances with China have gone far beyond just a simple trade imbalance. The trade equation has been the entry point to negotiating and creating conflict. He believes that China has exploited the United States economically through unfair trade practices, currency manipulation, and intellectual property theft, growing rich at America's expense. And he holds China responsible for the fentanyl crisis, which has killed unimaginably huge amounts of people in the United States. Absolute tragedy. Viewing it, of course, as a public health and as well as a national security threat, Trump also sees China as a geopolitical rival, aiming to replace, well, the U.S. in its #1 global spot as the sole hegemon and replace the U.S. dollar with its own currency or some kind of BRICS group currency, using financial counterattacks like dumping U.S. bonds to destabilize Western markets. Primary competitor. Additionally, China's technology theft, industrial espionage, cyber attacks ranging from stealing trade secrets to hacking U.S. infrastructure. It's a lot of shit going on, man. All a threat to U.S. innovation and security. Now, in his current term, the Don's strategy has evolved into a much broader, riskier effort to decouple the global economy from China, and preserve the U.S. dominance for as long as possible. Trump is fighting back, of course, with tariffs as a potential diversion, which is meant to disorient and really to put China in a corner. Okay? Think about it. Trump came out. He launched his reciprocal tariffs on the 2nd of April, but a few days later, he gave a 90-day pause to 75 countries and even reduced those tariffs to a baseline of just 10%, while China got slapped with much bigger tariffs, 125%, then 145%, but now it's back on most industries like computers and phones. It's just a 20%, and I won't be surprised by the time you're watching this, it's jumped either to 200% or 0% or 99% or a million percent. Who the hell knows? We're one tweet away from chaos all the time. Trump likes saying, of course, if you cooperate with USA and do not retaliate, then you're going to be fine. But China, refusing to lose face, retaliated with 84% tariffs, which later then increased 125% tariffs on U.S. goods and even imposed export controls on essential, critical, rare earth minerals which are needed for basically all modern technology, even trying and failing to recruit Australia to join the fight against America. Australia is one of America's key allies is Australia. Of course, they're not going to win over Australia, China. But this shows that Trump is slowly conditioning countries to decouple with China, or they won't be able to do business with the USA. It's like saying that if you would rather do business with China or dump the US dollar, then you're going to be in a lot of pain. And countries understand this and are trying to appease the United States by rushing to make deals. I think 130 countries are currently negotiating to make new deals with America. And you might think, but look, the USA is a downward spiral with all its insane debt and blah, 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 blah. And look, China's gold stockpile is going to be the saving grace. Look, China stockpiles, of course, important, but the USA exports debt. It's one of its primary exports to the world, the US dollar in debt. That's how they're able to run the budget deficits that they can. It's in a unique position. If it's not in that unique position, then it's in trouble. But China's gold bet, there's a chance they could be about to repeat their silver standard bumble from back in the day. They're the top gold kingpin these days, and Trump's already paving the way for the U.S. to become the crypto capital of the world, and even wants all future Bitcoin to be mined in the USA. Trump's not just preserving the status quo, he's fighting to preserve the dollar and U.S. global economic hegemony. He's positioning the U.S. to lead the world as well to a potential Bitcoin standard, trumping, ironic to use that word, but trumping China. Trump knows that a lot of countries are willing to basically bend over backwards to continue doing business with America. They're 1/3 of global consumption. Of course, everyone wants access to U.S. markets, and it's not too much of a stretch to imagine that he's going to force them to sign some kind of new economic deal like Bretton Woods, the Mar-a-Lago Accord, and maybe, just maybe, Bitcoin's part of that agreement. If Bitcoin becomes part of a new global package of reserve currencies, China's gold hoarding could leave it isolated to some extent once more, just like it was in the 1930s. Yes, China is also probably stockpiling Bitcoin. There have been reports that there's been closed-door meetings about doing exactly that, but at the moment, the USA has the most Bitcoin miners. US ETFs now hold 5 to 6% of the global supply, and that's growing all the time. The US government's literally proposing to buy up to 1 million Bitcoin with greater regulatory clarity and support. These numbers could only go up. Now, nobody knows Trump's full game plan here, but this theory feels increasingly plausible. Bitcoin mirrors gold as a store of value, only scarcer, easier to monitor, transport, and secure. If Bitcoin standard really starts emerging, holders could really become the new financial elite of the world. Trump, ever the shrewd businessman, Already positioning his family, of course, to win, diving into the crypto market with NFTs and all that stuff initially, but now we have World Liberty Fi. Now we have DJT Company launching Bitcoin ETFs. They're getting into Bitcoin mining. It's crazy. Anyway, in crypto, we know follow the money. And the Trump family is all in. So ask yourself, will you have enough Bitcoin if and when the big shift hits and we see a Bitcoin standard become a globally accepted standard for reserve assets? Not to say it's going to replace gold, not to say gold's going to go away, but that anybody not holding Bitcoin will be coping pretty hard from the sidelines. Thanks for watching.